Bad Boys for Life is an action comedy film starring Martin Lawrence and Will Smith. It's the third installment of the Bad Boys franchise, which started way back in 1995. Then the sequel, Bad Boys 2, came out in 2003. 17 years later, we're getting Bad Boys for Life. I'm conflicted, frankly. I'm a little conflicted about Bad Boys for Life because on the one hand, I think it is technically the best Bad Boys film they've made. On the other hand, I feel like it's the least enjoyable. And that's a weird place for me to be. The film just doesn't have the energy or the life or the natural charisma that the original two films had. And because of that, I just was kind of bored through a large chunk of the movie. Yeah, there were some jokes in there I laughed at. Yeah, there's some action set pieces which are interesting and kind of funny. But let's be real here. They were not as interesting or as funny as the original Bad Boys or the sequel, even though those movies were kind of a mess. It just kind of felt like it was checking off the boxes and moving on to the next set piece or the next joke. And it all felt really tame and planned. And there were no big surprises in the movie for me. And so because of that, I just left the theater going, it's fine, but I don't love it. I think it's a very inoffensive action movie. Really. I mean, if you like action movies, you're probably going to like the movie. It kind of just does everything it needs to do in order to make a pretty good movie. But it doesn't do anything so well or so amazing that I'm like, oh man, I got to see that again. It's just, it's a one and done kind of situation, I think. I mean, maybe if you're a huge fan of the Bad Boys franchise, you know, you love Bad Boys 1, you love Bad Boys 2, then yeah, man, you're probably going to really like Bad Boys 3. Okay, so what did they do right in the movie? Like, what are the things they did well? Okay, I'm going to say it right now. The story is really smart. It sets up a lot of internal conflict between the main characters, played by Martin Lawrence and Will Smith, which is awesome. Martin Lawrence's character, Marcus, wants to retire. He wants to get out of being a police officer, just live a more normal life with less danger in it. Will Smith's character wants to keep being a cop, being a young buck who's on the tip of the spear and just getting things done on the streets. But the fact is, Will Smith's getting old. And they play that into the character. You know, he's not a young hotshot anymore, and he just isn't willing to accept it. He keeps trying to do things the way he did when he was younger and more agile and stronger and better than he is now. But he doesn't accept it. So it's an interesting conflict. The other element in the story that we have going on is it's a revenge plot. You know, the son of the guy who is the villain in either the first or the second movie, I don't even remember, is coming back for revenge because the bad boys killed his father. And great, that's awesome. That works as a storytelling device. Revenge makes sense. People get it. Also mixed in there, we have this new hotshot group of like SWAT team members. And that's interesting to meet this new band of characters, and they use new techniques. Whereas, you know, Will Smith goes out in the streets and beats people up. We have, you know, people hacking computers and using technology to their advantage. All of this feels like stuff we've seen before. There's nothing here that feels really different, really revolutionary, and really cool. And they take little bits of a bunch of different movies, like a little from here, a little from there, a little from there, a little from there. They slam it together and it works. At the start of this, I mentioned the cinematography and the filming, and I think the filming, the choice of how to film the movie was good. The film looked pretty good for the most part. I was, however, doubting some of their decision making in the action scenes. There are some fight scenes and some action scenes where I am mixing up who's who on the screen, and I'm unclear about what exactly is happening, and it's just a flurry of movement. And then when it's all done, the characters stand up, but I'm like, oh, okay, I guess he won. Okay, great. It's not horrible. It's not the worst I've seen. We're not talking like Quantum of Solace levels confusion, but at the same time, it is not as clean as I would really prefer it to be. The soundtrack, I don't have a lot to say about the soundtrack, honestly. It worked for what it was. They, of course, bring back the Bad Boys theme, which has been a recurring motif in all the Bad Boys movies. So no surprises there. And the rest of the score was serviceable, and it did a fine job of building tension or playing to the comedy or whatever the scene called for. At this point, I have to talk about the film's main problem, which is supposed to be the film's main source of strength, which are the leads. Martin Lawrence, Will Smith. Let's start with Martin Lawrence. I, not for a second, believe Martin Lawrence is a 25-year veteran cop. I never buy it. You know, he plays the comedy well. He's a good comedic actor, and he does the comedy bits well. I never believe him as a cop, ever. He just doesn't have the gravitas or the energy of a cop, period. And while that worked and it was funny in the 90s, like when he was a young gun, hotshot cop, that he's kind of a goofball and whatever, dude, after 25 years on the force, you're gonna actually acclimate to the job. You're gonna become more like a cop. You're gonna behave more in line with what you would expect a cop to behave like. And it really broke the immersion of the movie for me. But again, Martin Lawrence is funny, so whenever he's telling jokes, which is most of what he does in the movie, it works for me. And his arc is kind of interesting as a character. So in this movie, he finds Jesus, you know? He's not going to be a man of violence anymore. And so there's an internal conflict as he's getting thrown into situations where he has to like shoot people and like protect himself and his friends. You know, it's interesting. It creates a lot of great conflict for the character, and it lets him grow in an interesting way, and it's funny. It offers a lot of really good comedic value, which is appreciated. The other part of this is Will Smith. Now, Will Smith, I think, does a pretty good job in this movie. Will Smith does a good job in most movies, let's be real. When these films came out originally in the 90s, Will Smith was at the peak of his powers, dude. He did Independence Day, and he did the travesty that was Wild Wild West, and he had this string of massive, huge hit movies, and he was a superstar. And so him doing Bad Boys it just made sense because he had that youthful Will Smith energy, and it just was awesome seeing him tooling around Miami in a super fast sports car, killing dudes. It was the bomb. It was awesome. But seeing 55 or whatever year old Will Smith today playing that same kind of character, nah, man, it just doesn't work for me. It's hit or miss, but a lot of scenes with Will Smith in this movie, I just don't buy it. I don't see this young hotshot guy. I see Will Smith pretending to be a young hotshot guy. And so it breaks the immersion of the film for me. And I can't get invested in the scenes. And I really lay that at the feet of Will Smith and Martin Lawrence's performances of these characters, because their relationship is the whole core of the movie. And if that doesn't work, which I don't think it really did, the whole movie suffers for it quite dramatically. Now, that all being said, I gotta say the supporting cast was great. The Ammo members, who are this special SWAT team that gets created in this film, they're all funny. They're all really charismatic. Those characters, those actors did a tremendous job. I'd say all the supporting characters, the people who played the villains in the movie, did an amazing job. Okay, to wrap it up, what is my final verdict on Bad Boys for Life? Personally, I would rate it like a 5 out of 10. But I don't want to be totally unfair to it because it is well made. And it's really well crafted. And maybe people connect better with the performances from Martin Lawrence and Will Smith than I did. So I'm going to give an official rating to Bad Boys for Life of 7 out of 10. It's a good movie. It does most things really well. Overall, it's very enjoyable. It's got some good action, it's got some good comedy, but nothing to really blow your socks off. If you're just looking for a good action movie to watch at home one night, this is going to be great. But do you really need to see it in theaters? I would say no. If you see it on streaming platforms, Netflix, Hulu, totally. It's worth a watch. It really is. But spending the premium to go see it in a theater, not unless you're a huge Bad Boys fan or Will Smith fan or whatever fan. I think you can skip this one in theaters pretty safely and not feel too bad about it. All right, well, that wraps it up for me. Thank you guys for watching so much. I hope you enjoyed my review for Bad Boys for Life. Please do all that standard YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe. So thank you guys again for watching, and check back soon for more reviews coming your way. Later.